Charleston police responding to Emanuel AME Church on Calhoun Street after a shooting around 9 o'clock this evening.
To be several victims, we don't know the severity of their injuries at this time.
People dislike other people simply by the color of their skin.
We will come out of this stronger. We will be better for it.
5 years ago, unspeakable violence at this church here behind us, Mother Emanuel AME.
Tonight, we remember the 9 lives lost and the survivors and how the community came together with the message of hope.
Our Carter Coyle spoke with family members of 3 of them, Ethel Lance, Susie Jackson, and Tywanza Sanders.
Love to dance, love really nice perfumes that she passed on to her daughters.
Ethel Lance had 5 children she deeply loved. Her oldest, Reverend Sharon Risher, says they had a cosmic connection.
We talked to each other almost 5 times a week, and especially on Sundays, she would tell me about the sermon and what Reverend Pinkney preached about or some church gossip.
Life wasn't always perfect for Lance, but Emanuel was her refuge. She was a custodian there, and in Risher's book, For Such a Time as This, she says, "My mother loved that church. As long as she was able to get out of her bed, Ethel Lance was going to be at that church." Risher is now an activist against gun violence at the national scale.
What I want people to do in commemorating the 5 years is to remember to be kind. It doesn't cost anything to be kind, and kindness spread a long way.
Their family was hit particularly hard with loss in the shooting. Ethel Lance's cousin, Susie Jackson, was also killed, and her great-nephew, Tywanza Sanders.
We got to hold up the bloodstained banner. We got to hold it up until we die.
If there's one thing to know about Susie Jackson, it's that she had a big family. Sisters, cousins, nieces here in Charleston, her son Walter in Ohio. She spent 2 weeks there just before the tragedy and left behind 8 envelopes for her great-grandchildren.
So why are you doing that? Well, I don't be here to give them their birthday cards. So she left all of them a birthday card.
Walter describes his mother's loss as simply senseless.
She cared about everybody. To see someone that kind just to get taken away like that, I still find it hard to believe that.
Great-granddaughter Tiana remembers having the choice between a big 13th birthday party or a family trip to surprise Grandma Susie in Charleston.
She came in and there was this big smile on her face, and it was the coolest moment ever.
I'm beyond grateful and thankful that God gave us that opportunity.
Jackson was especially known for her cooking. Nobody was going to go hungry or homeless if she could help it. And while this was her house, Mother Emanuel was her home.
We went to church every Sunday. It was never an option.
She actually helped me get through college.
Besides being a matriarch, she was our everything.
And we all got along so good. And I thank God for that.
I just want to say thank you to the world for the outpouring of love.
Susie and Tywanza's funerals were held together, the oldest and youngest victims side by side. Tywanza Sanders was 26 years old, a musician, poet, and man of God. His parents and friends have started an educational foundation, so far awarding $32,000 in scholarships in his name. That horrible night, the survivors say he tried to reason with the suspect, saying you don't have to do this, and using his own body as a shield.
I truly consider him a hero. I truly believe that he made a valiant effort to save lives that night.
This was Tywanza's last Instagram post just hours before he died. A life is not important, except in the impact it has on other lives.
We got to hold up the bloodstained banner. We got to hold it up until we die.
Husband, father, pastor, state representative, 41-year-old Reverend Clemente Pinkney was the pastor of Mother Emanuel and also served as a state senator for District 45. He was a married father of 2 and a graduate of Allen University. Reverend Clemente Pinkney was 41 years old.
Daughter, sister, librarian, friend, Cynthia Graham Hurd worked with the Charleston County Public Library System for 31 years. In 2011, she was promoted to manager of the St. Andrews branch. That branch now bears her name. Cynthia Graham Hurd was 54 years old.
Longtime former Mayor Joe Riley says he was proud of the way the city came together 5 years ago, and he says even to this day it's still hard to talk about.
He says that night he got a call about 20 minutes after the shooting from then Police Chief Greg Mullen. Well, he says the church is a symbol of coming together in times of tragedy.
The church stands for how the community came together in love and comfort and sorrow.
Sharonda Coleman Singleton was a coach, a minister, and a mother of 3. And it was that love for her children that helped to inspire the words that helped to unite our community.
And as Kyle Jordan tells us, those words are more important now than they ever have been.
Chris Singleton embodies the power of positivity. He lost his mother, Sharonda Coleman Singleton, when he was only 18. 5 years later, he's still finding ways to honor her.
Everything that I do, I'm going to try to make my mom proud in it. And now it's becoming more of a movement where I want, other kids to say, every single day of my life, I'm going to do so to make my mom proud.
Singleton has grown from an older brother to a husband, and from a son to a father.
I have different pictures around the house, and I try to show my son what my mom looks like so he can know that that's grandma.
Chris had just finished his freshman baseball season here at Charleston Southern, where his mother cheered him on from the stands. The night after her murder, he was back on the baseball field to deliver a powerful message.
Love is always stronger than hate. So if we just love the way my mom would, then the hate won't be anywhere close to what love is. I felt like God was speaking through me because I just spoke my heart, and that's what came out.
Charleston embraced the message with marches for love and unity, and the community began to heal. The theme stuck with Chris as he finished his baseball career at CSU and a brief stint in the minor leagues.
I always knew that I was more than just a baseball player. Whenever I would be at the field or signing autographs, I would always put love is stronger than hate. I wanted people to ask me what that was for so I can continue that message.
Chris returned home to the Lowcountry with a new purpose to keep his mother's spirit alive. He helped Charleston Southern open the Singleton Baseball Complex in her honor. Now he travels the country, speaking to thousands of students and professionals. He even has a new children's book out this week, sharing the message his mother inspired, a message that may be more important today.
After Mother Emanuel, everybody came together so quickly they didn't have to look themselves in the mirror. And just recently, after everything that's gone down, more and more people are asking the questions to themselves and to their family. I definitely think we're moving forward. But I still continue this message, regardless if it's June, January, August, or September. I'm going to continue to share the message of love and unity.
Singer, grandmother, friend. Susie Jackson was a longtime member of Mother Emanuel and sang in the church choir. Her grandson described her as a loving, giving woman with a great smile. Susie Jackson was 87 years old.
Great-grandmother, mother, friend. Ethel Lance was a member of Mother Emanuel nearly all of her life and was retired from her job at the Gilliard Center. She served as a sexton at the church and loved gospel music. Ethel Lance was 70 years old.
Well, that night there were lots of people milling around, expressing their outrage and anger for what happened in our city.
One local activist explains his pain for that night and what happened, as well as the pain of deep-seated issues of race in the community.
People dislike other people simply by the color of their skin, and that's bad. And then you have the nerve to get on TV and say this is the holy city. What's holy about it? We are communities trying to live and survive. Why do we have to live like this? We have enough issues here now in Charleston. We don't need more. We need peace.
Those powerful yet still timely words spoken 5 years ago by community leader Christopher Kaysen as he looks back for the first time in a long time at his interview the night of the Emanuel shooting. He says even today, those very same words still apply.
9 people died for no reason. We We see that now because all over the country it's still happening. This was at the hands of a racist, and some of these other ones all were at the hands of a racist, but just with a badge.
Kaysen says the night of the shooting left him frustrated and angry. He says in some ways he still feels that way today, saying the stain of racism still remains.
I'm frustrated, but one of the things I've learned since that night I made that video is I have to learn how to channel my frustration. I want to change.
Kaysen says another reason why he made his way to Mother Emanuel the night of the shooting was because of the then pastor at that time, Reverend Clemente Pinckney. He says he had met the 41-year-old senior pastor and state senator years before the shooting. He says after hearing Reverend Pinckney along with 8 others were killed inside the church, he was devastated. He says although Pinckney is gone, he will never forget the impact he made on him.
He really captivated me with his size, his demeanor, and the strength in his voice. He had a voice and people was following him. He was the 20th century Malcolm, Martin, Everett. He was all that wrapped up into one.
Since the shooting, Kaysen is using his voice even more in the community, talking to youth, city officials like the then Mayor Joe Riley about race relations, along with our current Mayor John Tecklenburg and former Charleston Police Chief Greg Mullen. He has even formed a friendship and bond with Polly Shepard, one of those who survived the shooting at the church. Kaysen says he will continue to speak up and never forget his purpose and goal.
I'm gonna remember them now. I'm gonna remember them.
The current pastor of this church, Reverend Eric Manning, says it's his job to make sure that the 9 who lost their lives are remembered.
He says he knows they unwillingly paid a price, but that we must continue to have a conversation.
We must remember what racism or where racism has taken us, and we don't want to keep going back there. But we want to be able to face each other, to have a conversation.
Reverend Clemente Pinckney was pastor of the church the night he was killed.
And he also had a passion for helping others. Caitlin Stansel has his story.
Those closest to Reverend Clemente Pinckney describe him as a caring giant of a man.
So that everybody has a seat at the table.
When I look at just what he offered, just in his witness, as a Christian and as a professional and as a black man, his life mattered. It still matters. He continues to make a difference.
It looks to help put South Carolina back to work.
His legacy is persevering on beyond his demise.
Pastor Kylon Middleton imagines his dear friend at the forefront of the political movement we are seeing today.
No justice! No peace!
He would be right in the middle of all of it. I knew him very well. We were childhood friends. We were competitive to the core. Iron sharpens iron, we used to say. We lost him, but his spirit was contagious. His spirit was inspiring. And so he passed that baton.
Even in death, Pinckney's legacy lives on.
A memorial to remember the lives lost and the survivors is in the works.
With an $18 million price tag, though, the foundation behind it says they wish they were further along. For a sense of peace, Reverend Anthony Thompson goes to his wife's crypt.
I know it's just her body that's there, but at the same time, it's the only quiet time, that I can really have and just talk with her and know she's hearing me and think about the answers that she's giving me.
But there's another place that will hopefully bring comfort to those who knew and loved Myra Thompson and everyone else who died that night. The future Emanuel 9 Memorial. It'll go here, right next to the church.
They're going to remember that Charleston is a city of peace, love, and forgiveness, because that memorial is going to be a symbol of all that because of the way we responded. We didn't respond with rioting and protesting.
These renderings are the brainchild of an architect in New York, the same firm that designed the National September 11th Memorial.
He met with every family member that would meet with him more than once on some occasions,
And it took well over a year before we came to the final design.
It's beautiful and it's humongous, and it should be, because the tragedy here was a big thing, and the effect that it had on people's lives was a big thing. And so I think it's conducive to what happened here.
Since the final design was unveiled almost 2 years ago, they've been raising money to bring the vision to life. About $11 million is still needed, and donations come in online every day.
There's been a lot of interest in the memorial really lately with everything else happening in the world. If it's ever needed, now's the time.
And time will remember Myra's name, along with 8 others, not just because they're etched in marble, but because of their role in the movement for equality.
Her name would be a part of, where we're going to go from here and where we're going to land. And I'm sure that we're going to not eliminate racism, but we're sure going to do a lot to minimize it. So her name. Just her name will be a symbol of that.
And the hope is that the memorial will be done in late 2021 or even 2022.
Teacher, mother, daughter, pastor. The Reverend DuPain Middleton Doctor was an admissions counselor at Southern Wesleyan University and also had her official license to preach after 5 years of religious studies. The Reverend DuPain Middleton Doctor was 49 years old. Son, friend, businessman, barber, Tywanza Sanders was a graduate of Allen University and worked as a barber at Smitty's Super 7 Barbershop. He described himself as a barber, artist, and poet. Tywanza Sanders was 26 years old.
And one of the 3 people who survived that night inside, Felicia Sanders. Not only did she fear for her life, but she also watched as her son Tywanza lost his.
Ann McGill tells us the story of Felicia Sanders and how she's taken on the role of helping other survivors of mass shootings.
5 years after the church shooting, survivor Felicia Sanders is putting her faith into practice. She's doing unto others as she would have them do unto her. Sanders is helping to shape a national program called Triumph Over Tragedy. The 6-day program takes survivors of mass shootings to a remote location in Tennessee to begin the healing process.
She has a really nurturing personality, and so when we had a pilot group go through the program in January, she just acted like a mama. She wrapped her arms around the survivors. She was very nurturing, and it really helped the community heal. So I can't imagine doing this program without her.
Deanna Wance is director of the On-Site Foundation, the nonprofit which runs the program. Her team actively sought out and recruited Sanders. The night of the church shooting, Sanders was not only terrified that she might not survive, but she also watched as her son, 26-year-old Tywanza, was killed as he tried to protect others.
Felicia has been such an important person for us because she has 2 perspectives. She's a survivor of a mass shooting, and she's also a parent who lost someone in a mass shooting. And those are 2 groups of people we work very closely with.
She says Sanders has been very instrumental in touching the lives of some of the survivors of the October 2017 Las Vegas shooting.
Felicia just has more years since the incident. And so she's been able to help those survivors walk through, this is what happens when you're 2 years out, when you're 3 years out, the different things that you process.
Sanders joined the team late last year and is making a profound impact in helping other mass shooting survivors on the road to healing. Ann McGill, Live 5 News.
Reverend Daniel Simmons, who was 74 years old, died after paramedics took him to MUSC.
Michael Higdon has more on his life and legacy.
His friends describe him as someone who always recognized you, and his family says he was an image of strength even after his death. Reverend Daniel Simmons Sr. served in the Army and worked with the State Department of Corrections as a teacher and counselor. He earned a Master's of Divinity degree from Lutheran Seminary. And even though he retired from ministry in 2013, he continued to serve on the ministerial staff at Mother Emanuel, and that's where he was when he was senselessly murdered. He survived the ambulance ride to the hospital where he took his last breath. And although he's no longer with us, his legacy lives on through his family. After the shooting, Simmons' granddaughter, Alana, established the Hate Won't Win movement, which encourages people to do acts of kindness for one another, something she hopes continues even 5 years later. In Charleston, I'm Michael Higdon.
Pastor, grandfather, husband, teacher. Reverend Daniel Simmons was a retired pastor and member of the Greater Zion AME Church in Owendale, where he led several Bible studies. He was described by those who knew him as a talented teacher and compassionate leader. Reverend Daniel Simmons was 74 years old.
Wife, coach, pastor, mother. Sharonda Coleman Singleton was an assistant pastor at Mother Emanuel and the head girls track and field coach at Goose Creek High School. She graduated from South Carolina State University, where she ran track. The Reverend Sharonda Coleman Singleton was 45 years old.
Wife, mother, pastor, teacher. Myra Thompson was a longtime member of Mother Emanuel and earned 2 master's degrees from the Citadel. She taught in the Charleston County School District in the 1980s and 90s. Students described her as loving. Myra Thompson was 59 years old.
Cynthia Graham Hurd, a librarian and a friend.
Our Carter Coyle spoke with her brother about the passion she had for her work.
That she was personable, she was sharp, she was candid.
The beloved Cynthia Graham Hurd worked for Charleston County Library System during the day and College of Charleston Library at night. Her brother, former North Carolina Senator Malcolm Graham, says she was a workaholic with a deep passion.
For the past 16 years of her life, she worked from 8 to 11 o'clock every day, not because she needed the money to work a part-time job. She just loved being in the environment of the library, loved helping people.
She was genuine and she just had a great quality and love.
Fellow church member and library colleague Marvin Stewart says it went far beyond reading and books for Cynthia.
A lot of individuals in her community did not have access to transportation, so she would have all type events. Cooking classes, carpentry classes.
She brought books to daycare, served on the local housing board, and of course knew all the history of her church, Mother Emanuel, and its role in the civil rights movement.
She would say to us, if she were here today, to simply keep the faith, but do the work and be able to, with conviction, call out racism and hatred and discrimination.
The Cynthia Graham Hurd Foundation is helping expand literacy with reading partners, and Live 5 is a proud sponsor of the annual book drive, which hopes to hit a goal of 60,000 books collected in 5 years.
She would simply be amazed.
This library, now named after Cynthia, proof of her living legacy.
In the days and weeks afterward, a piece of art began circulating around town that symbolized the Emanuel 9.
Yeah, and you can actually still see it to this day around town. Well, here's the story of how that graphic artist, what he created out of that collective heartbreak.
It was just such a horrendous time, a horrendous thing, and you know, I had something I had to get out. There it is.
The day after the shooting, Gil Schuler came to his Mount Pleasant studio and started sketching.
And it was such an emotional day, you know, that whole week when it happened. And that was one of the reasons why I did this. It was just like I was just shocked.
His inspiration started with the palmetto tree.
Immediately I could see the doves in the leaves, and so I just started drawing it, and I drew it really fast, and then I made the doves, and then I moved the one flying away, and that was that.
So fast, there are some imperfections that made it through.
This little area right here where it bleeds together was kind of a mistake, you know, and I've had people tell me, I love that you got the state of South Carolina in there, and I was like, no, that was a mistake.
With the image posted on his Instagram, the art immediately clicked. Hundreds of people reached out wanting more. Gill gave out the image for free with one stipulation: all money must go to the church.
It makes me feel good, you know, but it makes me feel sad at the same time. I mean, it's one of these things that work I'm proud of, but I wish it didn't exist.
Reverend DePayne Middleton Doctor followed in her father's footsteps, becoming a pastor.
Ann McGill talked with her father, who shares with us why the last moments before her death were so special.
Reverend Leroy Middleton has lost his eyesight since his daughter's death, but he vividly remembers her beautiful personality.
DePayne is a unique person. She's my pet.
Reverend Middleton and his wife Frances had 3 girls, Janeth, DePayne, and Laurel, the daughters of a preacher growing up in the town of Hollywood. Reverend Middleton says his daughter played basketball all throughout high school, and when she left home and headed off to college, she tried out for the team there, but she busted her knees. So since her athletic career was over, she decided then she would devote the rest of her life to her true passion, serving the Lord. As she pursued the ministry, DePayne got married and had 4 girls. The marriage didn't work out, but she kept her commitment to God, letting nothing get in the way.
I know one Sunday morning, she was going to church and she was running late. And she told the girls, she said, well, we ain't gonna make it to church. So I tell you what, we gonna have church right here. And this same coach right here, she kneeled in the middle, 2 on this side and 2 on that side.
After 5 years of religious studies, Reverend DePayne Middleton Doctor received her official license to preach. It happened at a meeting on Wednesday evening, June 17, 2015, at Emanuel AME Church. Right after that meeting, she went to Bible study.
I was really hurt when I saw it. I didn't know where to start. My daughter is gone.
Reverend Middleton says he is at peace with what happened and knows that God loved DePayne more than he did.
And I said to him, I said, well, God, I accept what you allow, because it happened, and I know you could have stopped it if you had wanted to, and if you didn't want to, you don't have to.
Just 3 days before she got her wings, Reverend DePayne Middleton Doctor stood at the pulpit and preached the Sunday sermon at Mother Emanuel. Ann McGill, Live 5 News.
As we look back on that night from 5 years ago, we're reminded of the mantra from the days after: love is stronger than hate.
We will never forget the 9 who lost their lives, the survivors, the families, and this church will forever be in our thoughts, our hearts, and our prayers.